one of my abusers was my mother's boyfriend. And I started standing up for myself and finally gave her an ultimatum that he had to go or I was gone. And I ran away from home, so she realized that I was serious. And so she finally agreed that she was going to ask him to leave. So he went to Canada, where he was from. Actually, he had fled Canada on statutory rape charges and had a history of abusing children. And so rather than him just going on his way and things returning to normal, not that there ever really was a normal in my household, she left with him. So she left me at 13 with my 8-year-old brother for 3 months, and she left us with $20 and a book of food stamps, which are like the government vouchers for food that we use here. And that didn't last very long. You know, after the money was gone, I started stealing food from the liquor store down the street from my house. And, you know, I would just have my brother wait outside because I didn't want him to get in trouble if I got caught, and I would just go in and steal food. And so I was at a very vulnerable place in my life. And, you know, my biological father had left when I was a year old. My stepfather had already left by this point as well. And now my mom was gone as well. So completely vulnerable. And it's at that point that an older boy in my neighborhood started coming around. And, you know, at the time, he hung the moon. Like, he took me to Burger King and bought me cheeseburgers. And, you know, he was present, which is more than I could say for any man in my life at that point. And he made me feel protected. I live in a very violent neighborhood. I, you know, watched someone stabbed to death right in front of my eyes, like several feet from me, and went home and didn't even mention it to my mother because that's just the kind of environment that I was living in. So he'd come around and tell me, you know, I got your back. Anybody messes with you, you tell them, you know, you send them to me, I'll protect you. And so he made me feel protected and provided for. And, you know, I thought he was my knight in shining armor. And I can now look back in retrospect, see that, you know, he came from a pimp culture and he had it in his mind to sell me and to capitalize off of my sexuality from the beginning. I remember being 15 and we were sitting at a bus stop on Lincoln Boulevard, which is a track. It's where there's a lot of prostitution going on. And we were sitting at the bus stop and he just looked at me and he's like, I could sell you. I was like, I didn't have, there was no paradigm for this in my head. What do you mean you could sell me? And he's like, I could sell you. And the next person who walked by, he looked at them and he's like, you got a nickel? Like, he was going to sell me for a nickel. And so that was his mentality, you know? And eventually that's what ended up happening. I began working as a stripper and coming home every night and giving him my money. And by that point, the relationship was physically abusive and emotionally abusive. But I didn't know any different. I didn't know that there was any kind of other relationship, you know, available out there. And I thought that all men were abusive because that's what I saw modeled to me. And I figured at least I know what makes this guy tick. And I can try to tiptoe around his mood swings and his, you know, tempers and abusive episodes. So I stayed for 7 years. I stayed in that relationship. It was horrible.